clearly we have to distinguish between specific religious ideologies. I mean, my argument is that specifically what people believe really matters. I mean, it really matters that in Islam at this moment, the doctrines of martyrdom and jihad are highly operative and give a rationale for the kind of behavior, the kind of death cult we see brewing in the Muslim world. And it's not an accident, given the theology of Islam, that that's happening. It is harder to get that kind of behavior off the ground if you're a Buddhist, or even if you're a Christian at this moment in Christian history, given actually specific differences in ideology. So yeah, I don't think we have to recognize that religion is a word like sport or a word like drug. I mean, there are many different kinds of sports, there are many different kinds of drugs. They don't have necessarily that much in common, and we will, under no circumstances, have a problem with Jain suicide bombers, no matter how we mistreat the Jains. I mean, the Jain religion really is a religion of nonviolence, and the more deranged you get as a Jain, you become less and less violent. So, and there are liabilities. The problem with dogmatism, really, I see, is that you almost can never tell how bad its consequences are going to be. I mean, because it's not mapping onto. I mean, dogmas are these beliefs about the world that are not respondent to their consequences in the world and to the streams of evidence and argument that should be modifying them. So you have a dogma like contraception use is immoral, this classically Catholic idea. This seems potentially benign. I mean, it seems like in the worst case you're going to get overpopulation, but then you map that onto sub-Saharan Africa, where you have Catholic ministers preaching the sinfulness of condom use in regions of the world where AIDS is epidemic, to people who have no other information about condom use but the representation of the ministry. And so what I've argued elsewhere, this is genocidally stupid, this behavior. And yet, because, as Stephen points out, because it is coming under the aegis of a person's religious conviction, it is immune to the kind of criticism that we would normally marshal against it. And the one other thing I'd like to say, I think that Dan Dennett would say if he were here, is that yes, there probably is some distance between what people actually believe and what they profess to believe. I mean, we have these astonishing poll results, and then we have to ask ourselves, well, how many people are really sure that Satan exists and leads people to sin, as something like 70% of the American population claims to believe? I just think you have to you cut the poll number in half or in a third. I mean, there's some core people who are really sure, and in the Muslim world, there's absolutely no possibility of doubting this, because they simply blow themselves up in front of the offices of the UN or the Red Cross to announce their certainty. And this is so. I think the idea that no one's sure, I think, is.
I just want to say one thing. I know you want to move on, but it relates to the two things that have just been said. The willingness that Steve talked about, which is certainly real, I think reflects a more general willingness that's based on illiteracy, in particular literacy of scientific illiteracy. There's another poll number that is equally, maybe more disturbing to me than the ones about evolution. And that comes from National Science Foundation studies that are done each year of scientific literacy. And every single year since it's been done, 50% of the American public get the answer to this question wrong. Does the Earth orbit the Sun and take a year to do it? Okay, 50% of the American public don't believe the Earth orbits the Sun and takes a year to do it, at least in the survey. Every single year. Now, I know who they voted for, but that's a different issue. The point is that I'm not sure if you really confronted them about this that they'd really believe that the Sun went around the Earth. But that woolliness, that really fundamental misunderstanding about nature, that ignorance is what, to me, allows a lot of the dogma to result. And so it seems to me that the real villain here is ultimately ignorance, and the best way to overcome ignorance is to teach, and that when you have a more literate and particularly scientifically literate public, I happen to believe that it will be much more difficult for a lot of the things that you fear and I fear to happen.
Right. Well, I agree. Let me just say, however, that I'm not. The basis for being totally sanguine on that front is rather narrow when you notice people like Francis Collins. I mean, how much more science does Francis Collins need to have on board before he doubts that Jesus is the Son of God, likely to return to save humanity. I mean, this is, as many of you, I think, know, he's written this book, The Language of God. It purports to reconcile evangelical Christianity with the last 50 years of molecular biology. When you get to the point in the book where he had his doubts about Jesus removed, you come upon a passage, not the anthropic principle and other things are in there, but when you get to the nuts and bolts of why he's sure of Jesus, you get to a moment where he was hiking in the Cascade Mountains and came upon a frozen waterfall. It was beautiful. He fell to his knees in the dewy grass and gave himself to Christ. Now, I would argue that if a frozen waterfall can testify to the truth of Christian doctrine, it can testify to anything. And this is not scientific thinking, and it gets a pass. I mean, it is impolitic for me to perhaps even be saying this. And I would love to be in dialogue with Francis directly about this, but it is this kind of thinking comes at a great price in our society, because it is now imagined that you can be rigorously scientific on every question and be certain, based on a frozen waterfall, that Jesus is the sole savior of humanity. And I think that's quite dangerous when we have a president who uses his first veto to block stem cell research, for instance.
Yeah, a couple of points there, Sam. One is that Francis Collins actually was invited. They invited him twice, and he's got an intramural meeting that he's actually chairing. So he sent his apologies. He would have liked to have been here. There was a debate at Time magazine's offices between Richard Dawkins and Francis Collins, which I believe is the subject of the next Monday's Time magazine. Richard, I guess, will be able to tell us about it when he gets here. Secondly, Dan Dennett, those of you who didn't know, had a serious heart issue a couple of weeks ago. He's fine now. He's back at writing vibrant and wonderful articles, one of which will be read by Paul Churchland later on. And Dan sends his best wishes as well. A lot of people, in fact, who were invited will be coming to, I hope will be coming to the one that they are missing, but we did invite Ed Wilson, and he said that he would love to come, but he was trying to reduce his schedule from insane to merely frantic. So he can't be with us either, but again sends his best wishes. We're about 15 minutes behind, but what I would still like to do, given the way the conversation has gone, I was hoping to establish some sort of grounding in this session. What I'd like to do is to have Michael Shermer just do a quick talk on sort of categories. I think this will help put us in, get things sorted out after these first three talks into where the debate is on this particular part of the issue. And then we'll take a break, and the panelists will still be here. The four of them will be here, and we'll start adding others. Neil Tyson has arrived, and Neil Tyson will come up and talk after the break as well, and other people who will be surprised. So I think Michael Shermer, if you're ready. Michael is the founding director and publisher, founding editor and publisher of Skeptic magazine. He's also a former college professor. He wrote a nice biography of Alfred Russel Wallace, and his latest book is Why Darwin Matters, The Case Against Intelligent Design. Michael Shermer.
Thank you, Roger. Good to be here, everybody. If I'm moving a little slow, I threw my back out this week, and just as I was getting better, I brought 3 cases of Skeptic magazine to give everybody, and that threw it out again this morning. So, but no worries, because we study chiropractic, and I've learned how to do it myself. So I'll just show you a little thing here. There we go. Much better.
You see, there is a God, Michael.
My headache's gone. I was trying to think of a little anecdote that would be appropriate. Huh?
No, please. I don't want to see it.
Hang on, let me see if they have any cups here. You're not supposed to show the reveal, but a little plastic cup goes a long ways for doing some simple magic tricks. Don't tell Randy I did that, because I'm only an amateur. I really did throw my back out, though. That's not funny. Well, I was trying to think of an anecdote appropriate for today, and I was on a book tour for my new book, Why Darwin Matters, on the East Coast last week, and a funny thing happened to me. I was